All right, I'm going to hand it over to Emily now.
All right. Thanks, Vanessa. So my name is Emily Olson, and if I haven't met you yet, I own Ripple Wellness with my husband, Jeff, and we are a multidisciplinary clinic in Washougal. So we have naturopathic medicine, nutrition, massage therapy, acupuncture, and then I do one-on-one yoga and breathwork sessions. So we just brought on Dr. Kellie this winter, and we're really excited for her to join our naturopathic team with Dr. Cox. And these talks are a really good way for you all to get to know our providers a little bit and for us to just share what we're really excited about. So we've been doing them all year, and then in the fall, we're going to start doing them really regularly on the monthly, where we'll just do like the Ripple Wellness series through the Camas Library. So that should be really fun. So that's it. And then I have a couple quick things to tell you guys at the end, but we're going to let Dr. Kellie get going. So thank you.
Hi, thanks, Emily. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. I'm just going to pull up my PowerPoint and share my screen, or do that in the reverse order. Here we go. All right, let me get this scooted over here. And slideshow. I usually do this. Oh, you guys are gonna presenter view. Nope, not that way. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so this is a talk on foundations of health. My name's Dr. Kellie Moore, and I just joined the Ripple team, which I'm super excited about. Before we get started, I just want to kind of set an intention for this talk together. I'm going to be providing a lot of information, and this is information just for your education, for your learning. We're going to take some moments to check in and take inventory and set reasonable intentions, but this is not about judging yourself or me judging you or thinking about what you should be doing health-wise. This is really educational and designed to empower you. So why I do this, again, this kind of ties into the intention behind this. Is not so that everybody looks a certain way or feels a certain way or has a certain kind of lifestyle. The reason I love to talk about the foundations of health is because when people optimize and make minor changes in their lifestyle, they feel better and they're better able to participate in the world and share their talents with the world. When everyone does that, the world is a better place. So again, not about leading a perfect lifestyle, but just feeling better. So I'm a naturopathic physician at Ripple Wellness, and my focus is on preventing and treating chronic disease, including digestive and hormonal metabolic conditions, using all the tools in the naturopathic medicine toolkit, but primarily focused on lifestyle medicine. So lifestyle medicine, if you look at this, if you think about any given health condition, you can approach it from this kind of pyramid perspective. And at the top of the pyramid, we have surgery and drugs, which are the primary focus of conventional medicine, which I'm certainly grateful to live in a time when we have access to, high quality surgery and medication. But there's also all these other tools that we can use in a naturopathic toolkit, including hormones, botanical medicine, nutraceuticals. But this talk is going to focus here at the bottom of the pyramid on the foundations of health. And I like to think about those as if you look at this image, I like to think of the foundations of health in this way. So you have the kind of roof structure here, which is like your health. And you want this to be really well supported by not only these pillars, but this foundational piece here, which I call Calm Cultivation. Essentially, it's stress management. And the reason I think about it as separate from these other pillars is because it's affected by the integrity of each of these pillars. Any imbalances in the other pillars of health are stressors. Your body will experience those as physiological stressors, and it'll make your roof a little bit wonky here. So when we think about those other pillars of health, we're thinking about nourishment, movement, rest, and connection. We're going to go through each of those today. We're going to start with Calm Cultivation, which is management of stress, but just said in a nice, non-stressful way. And understanding stress is really important to managing it. So it's important to know that stress is neither inherently good or bad. From a medical perspective, it's a physical, mental, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension that creates and releases stress hormones. And our response to stress is an adaptive trait that has evolved over the whole history of not just human evolution, but also animal evolution to really help us to do one specific thing, which is to escape danger. And that's a little bit maladaptive with our current lifestyle. And we'll go into more details about that in a moment. So let me just... I think I accidentally set the timer when I was rehearsing this, and now it's like rushing through, but let's go back here to understanding our stress response. So our nervous system is divided into a couple different ways. And one of those divisions divides the part of our nervous system that controls what we have conscious awareness of. So if I said, wave your hand, you'd be using that side of your nervous system. Today, we're going to be talking about a different side of your nervous system, which if I said secrete more thyroid hormone, you wouldn't know how to do that, but your body knows how to do that. Your autonomic nervous system knows how to do that. So this is the side of your nervous system that's in charge of all these automatic processes that are really, really important for your health. And that autonomic system is divided into kind of two lanes or two, I think of it as like a seesaw. On one end of the seesaw, we have our sympathetic nervous system. And this is, you may have heard of it referred to as fight, flight, or freeze. This is also a stress response. And then you have the other side of that seesaw, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is sometimes referred to as rest, digest, and heal, or our thrive response, or our thrive mode. And ideally, we've kind of evolved to function as organisms with most, our seesaw to look like this. We're mostly in parasympathetic. And then, when we have a stressor, that seesaw changes and we go into sympathetic, but then we go back into parasympathetic. And that's really, really important. I explain this to every single one of my patients because it's really important that we spend time in this parasympathetic mode in order to prevent and heal from disease. Now, the problem, or let me go into a little bit of the physiology behind this. So that stress response I alluded to over, millions of years of evolution has become finely tuned to be really, really good at escaping danger. And so in order to do that, imagine you're trying to run away from a predator. You're just going to want really specific functions in your body to work. You're going to want your heart rate to increase. You're going to want your blood pressure to increase. And to release sugar into the blood so you have more energy. And then that's pretty much all that you're going to need. And besides blood flow to like your legs and major organs, you're going to want to turn off your digestive system. You don't need your immune function. You don't need your reproductive function. All those functions that are really essential to optimal health are going to be kind of toned down when you're in a stress state. And what that results in over time is what we call an evolutionary mismatch. We have these ancient bodies, but we live in this time where we're under a constant state of stress, and our body doesn't differentiate between running away from a predator and all the other stressors that we experience in our daily lives, sitting in traffic, arguing, having a work deadline. All those stressors our body responds to in the same way. To the extent that most of us are in a chronic, if we're not very intentional about countering that, we're in a chronic state of mild stress, which over time really creates disease because our bodies can't function properly. And the World Health Organization has actually classified stress as the health epidemic of the 21st century. This was before COVID, but we know that that stress and diseases, the chronic diseases that are exacerbated or caused by stress, play a role in how we react to acute disease as well. So it definitely plays into COVID. This is a quote from one of my mentors. She's been practicing for over 30 years. And she always reminds her patients, you can only heal when you're in parasympathetic. So if you're going to a doctor, if you have a condition, anywhere from a cold to cancer, your body will only address it when you're in a parasympathetic state. And if you're constantly in that, have that seesaw out of balance and you're in that sympathetic state, it's much harder for your body to heal. So what do we do about this? just oftentimes I'll do this workshop as a standalone workshop, and we'll discuss these questions and others. But today, just for now, we'll take a minute to just think about these questions. How would you rate your daily stress on a scale of 0 to 10? You can pop that into the chat. And then once you've kind of rated your stress, if you feel like sharing or just thinking, identifying yourself, what causes you stress? We all have stressors that we're aware of. And I'm going to share other things today that create stress in our bodies. But what stressors are you aware of? When you think about what causes that tight sensation in your chest or causes butterflies in your stomach, what are those things that are causing you stress? And then on the flip side, do you have any regular habits that cultivate calm, that counter that stress? And again, this is not about judgment. This is about taking inventory and kind of checking in with your own self. So in order to address stress, the first step is to identify your stressors. And we talked about, we all have stressors that we're aware of, but there are a lot of other stressors that we're not necessarily aware of. And I'll list those now. Environmental toxins. We live in a really toxic world. Our bodies are constantly processing those toxins. Loss of sleep, disrupted circadian rhythm. So that's maybe sleeping, but at times your body's not expecting. Chronic and acute infections, an inflammatory diet, a history of trauma can be a constant stressor in your life. Blood sugar dysregulation is one that's really common and often goes under the radar for most people. Undernourishment, we live in a really well-fed but undernourished culture where we have a lot of calories, but our bodies don't always have the nutrition they need to do what they need to do. And then sedentary lifestyle, moving too little. On the flip side of that, moving too much can sometimes be a stressor. Loneliness is a huge stressor that's becoming more and more problematic, and we'll talk about that when we talk about connection. So these are just some examples of other stressors that you might not even have been aware of that can be putting your body into that stress response. So before you feel more stressed, these are the next steps for managing that. So first is identifying, just being aware of things that create stress in your body. And then you can think about, and this is something you can do on your own, what stressors can you completely remove? Maybe there are stressors in your life that you can actually get rid of. There are some that you can reduce. And then for those that you can't remove or reduce, reframing is a really powerful tool. And I'll give you an example. Cleaning my house is really stressful. On Saturday mornings, I wake up and I know it's the day I got to clean my house, got to get my kids up and going, and it's stressful. But if I say, oh, I have to clean my house, it feels like really heavy and stressful. And if I say to myself, oh, I get to clean my house because I have a house, I'm really lucky to have a home, it's a whole different reframing. So just changing that word from have to get, you can use that with cleaning the kitchen, you can use that with whatever is bringing you stress. A lot of times, just that reframing can be really helpful and just bring down that stressful feeling associated with what you're doing. And then we come to mitigating stress. There are going to be stressors that we can't get rid of. We try to reframe, but it doesn't really work. And so we need to build time into our lives for mitigating stress. And this is the way we do this is by intentionally increasing the amount of time that we spend in that parasympathetic state. So the recommendation is to spend 10% of your waking hours, which is about 90 minutes a day, in parasympathetic. It doesn't have to be 90 minutes straight. It doesn't have to be just sitting and meditating for 90 hours. There are so many activities that will put us into that state of parasympathetic. And so here's a list of some of them. But if you think about anything that kind of makes you smile, makes you laugh, brings you joy, makes your heart rate slow down, those are all things that will put you in a parasympathetic state. So I want to highlight, there's a huge list here. I want to highlight the bottom two. The Danish culture is one of the few cultures, at least in the Western world, that values doing nothing. Most of our cultures really pressure us to always be doing something. And the Danish have something called Nixon, which is the art of doing nothing, which I love. And when we've lost so much of the time we used to have culturally to do nothing, even waiting in line in a coffee shop, we're looking at our phones and our brains are constantly occupied. When our brains are literally, when our brains are not doing anything, they are doing something. They're being creative, they're processing, they're solving problems. And so giving your brain space to do nothing is really important. That's why we have creative ideas in the shower or in the middle of the night, because our brains are busy. So protect that time for yourself. Next time you're in line at a coffee shop, resist the temptation to pull up your phone and just kind of see what happens. Also retreating. This can be, just finding time in your week. One of my favorite tips for my patients is to really give them permission to ring fence a couple hours a week for themselves. That is sacred time just for them, that they don't schedule chores or work or anything for anyone else, and they have just for themselves. And that is beneficial in the moment, but it's also beneficial the rest of the week when you're on that hamster wheel of life and you feel like there's no end in sight. If you have this time set aside for yourself, then it can also bring down that stress level and the rest of the week. Just how I got through medical school with 4 kids. That's why saving Friday mornings for a sauna. And then retreating from, the rest of your life once a year or so can also be really helpful for kind of resetting that stress threshold. So take a minute here to reflect. I really like to empower people to think of self-care as something that is not selfish or lazy, but that is fundamental to your body's ability to function optimally, and therefore for you to do the things that you need to do to take care of the people you love and contribute to the world in the way you want to contribute to. It's really important that you have self-care practices and rest practices. And sometimes that's the most important thing I can do for patients, is to give them that permission. So think about now, you can share this in the chat, or you can just jot it down yourself, but what activities have you done in the past? It can be something you haven't done for years, but that you think of when you think of activities that fill your cup, that are nourishing and replenishing and bring you joy. And then what percentage of your week do you spend doing these activities? It might be a very small percentage, and that's okay. This isn't about judging yourself. This is about just kind of checking in and seeing, oh, wow, I used to love gardening and I just never make time for that anymore. And then how can you add moments of parasympathetic during an average workday? So we can't always get away for a massage or a retreat, but we need to find ways to bring moments of parasympathetic into our average day. And I'll give you a few examples, but if you have any ideas, a lot of times when I do these workshops, I love for people to share with each other their ideas, whether it's going for a walk with friends during work. I just, when I was out the other day, I saw this whole group of like 20 women walking together, and I was like, what's happening? And they were doing a meeting, but they were walking. They worked for a local organization. They were having a walking meeting. So, things like that are really awesome for, finding ways to fit these into your workday. And then is there a time in the calendar, whether it's once a week or once a month, where you can schedule that non-negotiable you time? And really prioritize that. When you look at your calendar and it's just full of things, think, what can I delete and like put in that massage, or put in that cup of coffee with a friend, or that walk, or that whatever that is that fills my cup and would help me feel like I had some breathing space in the week. That's really, really important for your health. And I would encourage you to find time to do that. So takeaways from this pillar, this is the one I talk the most about because it's really important for all the others. Having a healthy respect for both stress, we need stress to survive, but also calm. Calm is very much undervalued, and as is rest. So a takeaway from this talk is to really prioritize rest and putting yourself into a state of calm, because that is where your body heals. That's the only place your body can heal. And so health snack for this particular pillar, I just wanted to share for each pillar something that you can take away and do easily. There's so many different breath patterns that have been studied breath is the only way we can kind of actively or directly change that seesaw balance. There's not like a button or a switch that we can say, oh, go back to parasympathetic. Breath is the way that we can do that. And slowing our breath will help bring our body out of a state of stress into parasympathetic. And there's, as Emily could attest to, if you did a one-on-one session with her, there's so many types of breath that are really healing. This is just one of those. And this comes from one of the fathers of integrative medicine in this country who's been in practice for 50 plus years. And I like to share that because it seems really simple. It's just inhaling for 4 counts, holding your breath for 7, and then exhaling for 8, doing that 4 times twice a day. So we're talking about 1 minute twice a day. He has seen this. This is Dr. Andrew Weil. He has seen this, when it's used regularly, really rebalance that nervous system tone between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So I just love to share this because it's super simple. We all have 2 minutes a day that we could use to take a few deep breaths and change our nervous system. So let's move on to the next pillar, nourishment. And I just want to take a moment. I'm going to talk primarily about nutrition, but I want to acknowledge that there are lots of ways that food can nourish us and other things nourish us as well. And I don't want to discount those or ignore those when we're talking about nutrition, because nutrition can feel a little bit dogmatic and unappreciative of those more cultural and social aspects of nourishment. So let's keeping that in mind, because this is a short talk for lots of subjects. We're just going to talk about nutrition today. And when I talk about nutrition, I divide it into 3 stages. First, we have to think about what are we putting in our mouth? That's our input. Sorry about this timing, you guys. And then once that's in our mouth, we have to think about, are we absorbing it? We can spend all the money we want on beautiful, healthy food. If we're not absorbing it, then it's not going to be doing us any good. And then excretion is that final stage of nutrition. That's really important. So nutritional input, what should we be eating? This is a very complicated question. It seems like the answer changes all the time. And nutritional research is really hard to conduct because you can't just put people in like a glass box for a year and feed them certain things. So, we have to take nutritional research with a grain of salt. And Michael Pollan is a food writer. He has a really excellent book. I'm blanking on the name now, but he kind of condenses all this sort of research and traditions around diet into this kind of statement that summarizes and simplifies all of it, which is eat food. And that's not as easy as it sounds, not too much, and mostly plants. So I'm going to kind of expand on this eating food thing. What is food? When we think about food, we want to be choosing foods that are closest to their natural state and are as far from food-like substances as possible. So if you go into the grocery store and you look at food labels, you're going to find a lot of ultra-processed foods, which have really come so far from being food that they can be referred to as food-like substances. So how do you tell what's a food and what's a food-like substance? Well, some things are really obvious. Like an apple is a food. You pick it off a tree, it grew like that. That's a whole food. Apple sauce is a minimally processed food. You took an apple, you blended it up. If you add a bunch of like color and corn syrup to it, it starts to become a little bit more heavily processed. And then an apple gummy bear is not a food. It's a food-like substance. So when you purchase food, you're going to look at the label, just flip it over and look at the label, and you'll just be surprised at what, something that might be labeled organic or gluten-free will have this huge list of ingredients. Michael Pollan uses a rule of thumb. If there's ingredients on there that your grandmother wouldn't understand or that you can't pronounce, it's definitely not a whole food. If there's more than 2 lines of ingredients, it's probably not a whole food. So, just start looking at labels. That's a really great place to start. And once you're eating whole foods, you want to then refine your meals to try to get 7 to 10 servings of fruits and veggies during the day. And I tell grownups really just mostly veggies. Fruits can be super sugary and problematic for blood sugar unless they're berries. So I like to think of fruits as a treat, or I eat them with fat and protein. So really aiming towards more veggies. And what you're gonna think about a serving as half a cup cooked or a cup raw. So it's a lot. And it takes some intention to get that food and that color and that plant matter into your diet. The other thing you want to think about is protein. 3 servings of protein the size of the palm of your hand daily. That's going to be things like meat, cheese, eggs, beans, nuts. Those all have protein in them. And then once you've got that in place, you can kind of refine it even further. When you're thinking about veggies, it's really important for all kinds of health, even mental health, to have 2 to 3 cups of leafy greens daily and 3 servings of seafood weekly. So these are recommendations that come from a modified Mediterranean diet food pyramid. There's more, but I like to start here with patients. Usually I just start by having patients look at their plate and see if there's any color on it, and then go from there. Oh, the last one. This is a fun one. When you're eating carbohydrates, even if it's a healthy carbohydrate like a sweet potato or popcorn, where it's like almost a whole food, it's still full of sugar. And if you eat it by itself or you eat it naked, it will spike your blood sugar. I have my dad's visiting, and he's wearing a continuous glucose monitor. And every day he's like, oh, I thought popcorn was healthy. It spiked my blood sugar, So you'll be surprised at what will spike your blood sugar, even if it's a quote unquote healthy food. So don't eat your carbs naked. Put fat and protein with your carbs. If you're having a potato, have it with chicken and olive oil. Even better is the order you eat your foods in. So if you eat your fiber and your protein first and you eat your carbs last, it'll spike your blood sugar even less. You can do a whole deep dive into blood sugar. Can be really interesting and informative, but just as a rule of thumb, don't eat even fruit. Don't eat it without fat and protein unless you want your blood sugar to spike a little bit. So once you're putting healthy food into your body, you want to make sure you're absorbing it, because you're spending a lot of time and money and intention to do that. Digestion starts in our head. When we are consciously thinking about food, we're turning on our digestive system. And I like to remind patients that our digestive system is like a machine. And before we put things into it, we need to turn it on if we want it to work well. And that starts in the head. And so what I like people to do is to sit down to eat, and before they eat, to do just a really brief pre-meal meditation. This is a tip that comes from a doctor I met at a conference in he treats very, very sick patients with mold illness, and he makes all of them do this pre-meal meditation, which is just a testament to the power of the importance turning on your digestive system. And you just sit down, you think about your food. What does it smell like? What is it going to taste like? Where did it come from? Maybe a little bit of gratitude practice. And as you do that, you will feel saliva being excreted into your mouth, and you'll also be starting to secrete stomach acid. And those are very important components of digestion. So once you've got that cephalic phase of digestion going, you're chewing your food really well, your food moves into your stomach. And this is a really important place for the rest of the digestive process, because the rest of the digestive process is relying on the acid in your stomach. And this is problematic because a lot of digestive conditions are treated by suppressing acid for years. And that creates really significant health issues down the road, not just in your gut, but in your whole body. So some of the reasons that acid are important, it protects the rest of our digestive system from any organisms you've ingested, which you always will be ingesting organisms with your food. But it also is essential for breaking down protein, mineral digestion, and activating B12. And you need the material that leaves your stomach to be acidic in order for your pancreas to secrete digestive enzymes and for your gallbladder to secrete bile so that you can digest your fats. And so if you don't have enough stomach acid, you probably are not digesting your fats very well either, which is a problem for vitamin D absorption, even if you're supplementing with it, and other, absorption of any other fats. So stomach acid is so important. I always start there when I'm starting with gut health. And there's lots of different ways you can support your stomach acid production. The first one is taking that deep breath before a meal, because you're turning on your parasympathetic nervous system, and that turns on your digestion. So deep breath before a meal, signal to your body, like, I'm about to put food in here, get ready. And then you can have acid with your food, apple cider vinegar, or HCl capsules. Bitter foods, bitter tinctures will stimulate stomach acid production. Precursors to stomach acid, zinc and B1, you want to make sure you're having a multivitamin that has those, and the HCl is acid. You can take that with food. So these are ways to optimize your acid production. And not to mention, if you're taking a PPI, like omeprazole or something chronically, probably want to talk to your doctor about ways to change that, because that's just suppressing your acid and it's countering any of this that you might do. All right, once your food leaves your stomach, it's going to be absorbed in your small intestines. We have all these little projections that stick into our small intestine and make that surface area of the small intestine the size of a tennis court, so that we can absorb everything that goes through there. The problem is that inflamed intestines are going to have damaged villi. That's what those projections are called, and they won't absorb nutrition as well. So things that cause inflammation in our small intestine range anything from an imbalance in your microbiome, which can be caused by antibiotic use, stress, inflammatory foods. There's any number of things that can reduce the ability of your small intestines to absorb nutrients. So if you think or suspect you have any issues with that, that's a good time to check in with a naturopathic doctor. And then we get to excretion, which is really important. As a naturopath, I talk a lot about poop. It's important for people to know that it's not healthy if you're not pooping every single day. You need to be having at least one bowel movement every day. It should be well formed like a log. It should be complete, so you feel like everything's out, easy to pass with no blood, no mucus, no undigested foods, and it should be brown, not black or white or red. If your poop is not brown, if it's any other color, you need to talk to a doctor. And if this is not happening for you, then your digestive system is not functioning well, and you're also not excreting your toxins that your body dumps toxins into your colon, expecting that you're going to be pushing that out every day. So it's really important that you're pooping every day. And one of the ways we poop every day is by making sure we get enough fiber. So that's in plant matter and beans, legumes. It sweeps through our intestines and helps take out the waste. So when you're putting together your meal plan for the week, just making sure you have enough fiber. If you're getting those 7 to 10 servings of veggies a day, you will be getting a lot of fiber. So deep breath. I just threw a lot of nutritional information at you, and that's really just kind of scratching the surface of nutrition. But what are some takeaways? Eat minimally processed, colorful foods. If you're doing that, you're going to be doing better than most people in this country. Optimize your eating environment so that it's low stress. Take those deep breaths before meals so you turn on your digestive system. And then pay attention to your poop. A lot of people don't look at their poop because they think it's gross, but it's a really important signal to how well your body is working. So health snack here, something you can do that's super simple is when you put together your plate, just ask what colors are in my food. And if all your food is brown, then add some color, add a handful of spinach, a handful of blueberries. And then if you look at your plate and there are lots of colors, one good way to add even more is to substitute pasta for sauteed greens, or substitute a sandwich bread for salad. And then you've got those 2 to 3 servings of greens in your diet as well. All right, let's move on to movement. Healthy movement can be a stressor if it's excessive. And it can also be a stress reliever. So it's important to be really intentional about the type of exercise you're doing. If you're trying to heal from chronic disease, that's not the time to be training for a marathon, because that is a big stressor on your body. So when I'm talking to patients about movement, I like to make sure that they have a balance. First of all, that they're moving every day, and then that there's a balance between activities that increase your heart rate, like cardio activities, strength training. That's super important for the health of our bones and our hormonal health, and also just our safety as we age. It's important to keep our muscle strength and muscle mass, and then flexibility. This is one of the reasons I love yoga. There's a lot of types of yoga that will get your heart rate up and also give you some body weight exercise and flexibility. There's lots of other ways to do this. One of my top tips, especially for women who are heading into premenopause, perimenopause, menopause, and are starting to worry about bone mass, is to just buy a weighted vest, like 4 to 8 pounds, and use that when you go on your walk or a hike, or even while you're just walking around your house, cleaning your house. If you add that weight to your body, it'll help with maintaining bone mass. And then movement snacks. It's really, it's hard to find an hour a day to exercise. It's a lot easier to find 5 minutes a few times a day to move your body between meetings or after lunch or something like that. And I really like to empower patients to, take advantage of those little moments of opportunity to move. They're exponentially better and will make you feel exponentially better than if you don't move at all. So even if you don't have time for that, hour or even 30 minutes a day, if you can find time or set a timer just to move your body a couple times a day, it's really, really beneficial. So takeaways for this movement pillar, incorporate a variety of movements into your lifestyle. And then a really great health snack is to walk for 10 minutes after lunch or dinner. This is just a great time to squeeze in movement, and it also will help lower your blood sugar. So that's a good way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. All right, connection. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's so important for our health and it's under recognized, I think. And when I talk about connection, I talk about connection to self, and that means connection to our sense of purpose and also our values. And these both separately, like lack of connection to values and lack of purpose in life have been studied to be root causes of depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety have their own implications for our physical health as well. So connection to sense of purpose and values is really important for mental and physical health. And when people are struggling, especially with mental health, I always check in on these with them. All right, connection to community is really important, and I'm going to go into more depth on that in just a minute. And then connection to nature. Some of us live in really beautiful places where it's easy to access nature, but a lot of humans do not, and it creates a nature deficit disorder that has downstream effects ranging from mental to physical health issues. But for this talk, I'm going to dive into connection with community because it's one of my favorite topics. We are a tribal species, and we have thrived evolutionarily in part because we're really good at banding together. And so if you think about how we've evolved as humans, we've evolved to be in community. For most of our evolutionary history, we couldn't survive without interacting with other humans. You have that quote, it takes a village, not only to raise a child, but just to exist. Or it used to. I mean, it still does, but we don't see that village. We don't have to interact with that village. And that's an issue with modern society where we're essentially conducting an experiment. What happens when people are disbanded from their tribe? This information comes from a book called Lost Connections by a science writer named Johann Hari, who's consolidated some of the research behind root causes of depression and anxiety. And this was before COVID. And even then, loneliness and lack of connection was a huge health issue. You think about it now, especially after COVID, it's very easy to spend a week without interacting with other people physically. We're holding this meeting by Zoom. You can order food in, you can work from home. You don't have to leave. For many of us, we don't have to leave our homes. And that's great for convenience, but it can be really problematic over time for mental and physical health. We lose connection. And when we don't interact with other people, a lot of times we lose a sense of purpose as well. Connection and purpose are not just like fluffy like bonuses in life. These are psychological needs. Just like we have physiological needs, like we need food, we also need to be connected to other people. We need a sense of purpose. Because of that, we've evolved to experience loneliness. Loneliness is a signal that tells us to get back with our tribe. So we're hardwired to experience loneliness as kind of an impetus to get back to safety. Because, loneliness is an important signal to our body, it is a stressor. It increases our stress hormones. And because of that, it can actually be a bigger contributor to mortality over time than obesity, smoking, exercise, and nutrition. So you cannot underestimate the negative impacts of loneliness. And it's a little bit daunting because there are a lot of lonely people in the world now. The United Kingdom has actually created a ministry of loneliness to try to address this issue. So And that's because there are psychological implications, depression, anxiety, addiction. When people are lonely, there are physiological implications because loneliness is a stressor. So all those potential chronic diseases that are exacerbated by stress will be exacerbated by loneliness. And then there's just practical implications of life being harder or even more dangerous if you live alone, especially as you age. So takeaways from this connection pillar, just highlighting the importance of community, the importance of interacting with other people, the importance of connection to your own sense of purpose, and living your values. A lot of us are vaguely aware of our values, or we know what our values are, but there's a discrepancy between how we live and what our values are. So touching base with that is also really important. So one health snack for this that I love is a 20-second hug. When we hug people, we lower our stress hormone cortisol, we increase the feel-good hormone oxytocin. We're also a really touch-deprived society, and there's good reason for that. We're a little bit wary of touch now, but touch is really important. Healthy touch is really important. So a healthy hug with someone that you love and trust is a really lovely thing, especially when you extend it into that full 20 seconds. And then this 3D greeting is another one I love because it's so easy to live with people, but not really connect with them. And a 3D greeting is when your partner comes home or your kids come home, your roommate comes home, you interact with them in 3 different ways. You make eye contact, you touch them, maybe on the shoulder, maybe a hug, and you say something. And it's amazing how often I don't do this. My kids come home from school and I just kind of, we just pass like ships in the night. And so being intentional about, even with the people that you live with, about really, really connecting with them is a really nice thing to do. All right, our last pillar is rest. And I divide rest into sleep and relaxation. And we've already talked a lot about relaxation. So these last couple slides will be about sleep. And this is one that triggers people I've noticed in these talks. I want everyone to just take a deep breath and remember that we're not here to judge how much you sleep. Sleep is hard for people for a lot of different reasons. My role here is just to share information from sleep experts. And I find that, I have patients that don't get the recommended amount of sleep because they struggle with insomnia, or their work schedule or their parenting schedule doesn't allow for it. But I have a lot of patients who can get 7+ hours of sleep, but they just haven't prioritized it. And so this information here is just for those of us who are able to sleep 7 hours, but don't always remember to do that or to prioritize that. When I learned this information, I was in medical school and I was sleeping less than 7 hours, not so that I could study or parent, but that's so I could get up early and work out. And this shifted my priority, realizing that sleep is one of the most important pillars of health, more important than exercise. So sleep experts consider anything less than 7 hours a night to be sleep deprivation, which is a form of torture. So don't torture yourself if you can help it. Even if you think you're functioning well on less than 7 hours, when scientists have studied this, the percentage of people who do not experience any negative physiological impact from less than 7 hours of sleep is 0. So we need 7+ hours of sleep. How do we get that? It's not always easy. Behavior and environment are really important for sleep. So we've evolved to sleep in a cave-like environment where it's cool, about 67 degrees Fahrenheit, no lights, not even from appliances. Using our bedroom only for sleep, our brains are highly associative. So if our bedrooms are a place we work, where we watch a TV, we're going to have more trouble sleeping there than if it's just a place that we sleep. And then preparation for sleep starts in the morning when we're exposed to blue light during the day. It not only stimulates our cortisol production and kind of gets us going in the morning, but it also sets us up for better sleep hormone production at night. Exercising early in the day functions the same way. Eating our large meals early in the day makes it easier to sleep. And then having carbs at dinner, when you have dinner, will also help with sleepiness, because when we have carbohydrates, we make more insulin, and insulin suppresses cortisol. So if you are going to eat a lot of carbs, make sure that they're healthy carbs, eat them with fat and protein. And then when you have them at dinner, you can use them to help you feel tired. If you're waking a lot at night, there's many reasons this could be happening, but it sometimes is related to your blood sugar dipping into a low region, and that can cause you to wake up. So if you have a high protein snack, just something really small, like some cheese or a piece of jerky or a handful of nuts, that can help sustain your blood sugar overnight. And then one thing that's really important is to, just like you do with your kids, you know, you have a little bedtime routine. You don't just stick a toddler in bed after he's playing. You know, he or she needs time to kind of wind down. We do too. So creating a schedule for yourself that allows for an evening wind down ritual where ideally you're turning off your phone, or turning off your phone, but not looking at screens for an hour before bed. That blue light will suppress melatonin production and make it harder to fall asleep. So avoiding screens, avoiding stimulating activity. I had a friend who was really disciplined about no family arguments or like serious discussions after 7 p.m., which I was really impressed by. And it's great advice, because when you watch something stimulating or you have an intense conversation, you are excreting a lot of stress hormones, and it's going to be harder to sleep. And then finding something relaxing to do can be like sewing, knitting, coloring, reading, and then get into bed. Give yourself a window. You know, you need 7+ hours of sleep. Don't get into bed right at that 7, right when that clock starts ticking. You want to give yourself at least half an hour in bed to wind down before you need to be asleep. So takeaways from this: if you could put sleep in a pill, it would be a miracle drug. It's very hard to oversell the benefits of enough sleep. And then going back to relaxation, this is how we mitigate stress and how our body heals. And I can't also overemphasize the importance of rest. And I feel like we get a lot of messages in our society that push us away from resting. So one of my missions is to counter that by really helping people to understand how important rest is. All right. Remember, you can only heal, digest, balance hormones in your parasympathetic state. So health snack. One of my favorite health snacks for sleep is what are generally called sleep casts. These are things you can find on YouTube, Spotify. You can find them in apps like Calm and Headspace, but they're kind of like podcasts or like bedtime stories, but for grownups. And you can find them in all different kinds of voices, accents, topics. And the key is to find something that holds your interest so that your mind pays attention. Sometimes if we just put on like meditation music, our mind starts running anyway. So find something that's holding your interest, which is why these stories or these sleep casts are helpful, because they're a little bit interesting, but they're not stimulating. And they're usually like in a very calm voice that will put you to sleep. So exploring resources for sleep cast. If you struggle to fall asleep, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, one of the worst things to do is to get up and watch TV. If you wake up in the middle of the night, don't subject your eyes to blue light. Listen to a sleep cast, and it will help you go back to sleep. So if you want to take a deeper dive into any of these topics, you can schedule with me or Dr. Cox at Ripple, and here's some resources for that. And then I also just going to put a plug into, I'm so passionate about foundations of health that for the last couple of years, I've run retreats where this is what we do. We spend a week kind of stepping off the hamster wheel of our life and really learning about, but also living these foundations of health and really feeling what it feels like in our bodies to do all of this at once, which in real life is hard for us to do. And I don't do all of this perfectly every single day. So these retreats are a great opportunity to feel that and take a deeper dive into each of them. I'm really excited to be offering one in Mexico next May. And then here in Washington in the Methow Valley, which is kind of up by closer to the Canadian border than Camas, in Eastern Washington. It's about a 6-hour drive from where you all are, but beautiful part of the state. I'll be offering a retreat in September where we'll be focusing on gut and hormone health, but we'll be doing that from a foundations of health perspective. And if you want more information on that, you can also contact Ripple. So with all that being said, that was a lot of information. What questions do people have? You can just put your questions in the chat, I think, right, Emily?
That was good, Kelly. I actually am not super overwhelmed. I hope everyone's not overwhelmed. What do you guys think? I love your health snacks. I have yoga snacks. So I think that's, yeah, I think that's kind of the name of the game is like, and right now I've started doing this workout that's like 4 moves 3 times, 4 moves 3 times a day. Yeah. And it's like, so it's like 10 minutes at a time, you know, I think the snack is,
yeah, that's the way to do it. Yeah.
what do you guys think? Any questions for Dr. Kelly? My favorite sleep cast is Nothing Really Happens. Vanessa, have you checked that out? Melanie recommended that on one of these talks. And so I've been listening to that. It's good. No, guys. I think it's so interesting about the eat a little protein before you go to sleep because we're so like schooled to like not eat anything for X amount of time before sleep, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It can, if you eat something heavy, then you're really putting your digestive system under pressure. And then if you're trying to do intermittent fasting, then that will break your fast. But you can still, you know, if you're going to bed at 9, you can still have a high protein snack at 8 or something, and you can still get in like a 12 to 14 hour fast if that's something you're aiming for. So, and it's not for everybody, but if you do find that you are waking up in the middle of the night, it's something to try.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good idea. And we might do, if you guys are interested, Kelly might do a class on blood sugar regulation, which as you all probably know, it's just like, it comes up constantly at Ripple. Like blood sugar dysregulation is just such a culprit for so many chronic illnesses and the symptoms of those illnesses and the symptoms of both like acute and chronic pain. So we get really into it at Ripple, and we're all happen to be like reading this book called the Glucose Revolution, right, Kelly? Glucose Revolution. Yeah. So we may do like a sequence class with Dr. Kelly in the fall where we like wear the continuous glucose monitors and you can monitor it on an app on your phone. So yeah, because blood sugar regulation is something that I think it's not rocket science, but it does take some education and some vigilance, and you have to just get in the habit of it. You know?
Yeah. And it is surprising, you know, people think that they eat healthy. Maybe the foods that they're eating are quote unquote healthy, but the order they're eating them in or the combination or the time of day, and everyone's different. So it's really great to have the opportunity when you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor to see how your body is reacting to particular foods, particular times of day, how it responds, you know, if you eat something and don't move, or if you eat something and you do move. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It'll be really fun to take a deeper dive into that.
Yeah. So anything else, guys? You guys have some questions, comments?
I'll say something. We live in California, and we wish that we lived closer to you, Kelly, because you're really wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you. That's
yeah, you really are. And you too, Emily, you're wonderful too. But anyways, you gave us a lot of great information, and I took a picture of all the screens so I can have it to refer to.
Oh, good, good. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, you guys. So let's see. So a couple announcements. We are having the Ripple Wellness Health Fair at the Camas Farmers Market next Wednesday. So the first Camas Farmers Market of the season is next Wednesday from 3 to 7 outside of Camas Library. And I am super excited. Ask Kelly. I have been like bouncing off the walls about this event. So this has been like 2 months in the making, and we have 16 wellness practitioners that I've organized that are going to have tables at this health fair at the Camas Farmers Market. And the whole inspiration behind it is that we have an amazing health and wellness network in Camas, Washougal, and East Vancouver. And I just want to like scream it from the rooftops and have the public really see this cool network that we have, and that we all have a relationship with each other, and we cross refer and all of that. And Vanessa knows a few of them because we've done roundtables here at the library with these different clinics. So That will be really cool. We have that. And then, like I said, in the fall, we're going to do a wellness series with Camas Library. In the fall, I am going to start doing a monthly breathwork circle. So if you hear all these things about how you should be breathing or different techniques for breathing, I am obsessed with breathwork, and I have been for a very long time. So it's my primary relaxation practice, and I love sharing it. So we're going to do some really cool breathwork circles in town. I just have to find the perfect space because it needs to be a very, very beautiful space where we can all, and it's going to be so awesome. So I really want to find like a gorgeous space where you can all just lie back once a month. Tell me if you guys think it should be midweek or on the weekends, because that is something that I'm just kind of feeling out right now. So that's that. And then lastly, one of our community partners, Natural Grocers. I don't know how into Natural Grocers you guys are or where you shop, but Natural Grocers is a health food store on 192nd. And they are very, very committed to community partnerships and collaborations. And they've been really awesome. Okay, Anne is a midweek. Gotcha. Natural Grocers has been really awesome in their support of Ripple with their health coach, Jen Resnick. They're going to be at the farmers market with us. They do a lot as a company to support community wellness. So every talk we've had at the Camas Library the last several months, Jen, their health coach, has donated a Natural Grocers gift basket. So this one, and they are not small. These are like really hefty, awesome gift baskets. And this one highlights all their brand food. So we have it over at Ripple. Vanessa's just going to like pull an email of people who are signed up for this class. And I really encourage you to just get over there and get to know them and get to know Jen. She offers health coaching over there. And they're just, I can't speak highly enough of them. I just love that store. And I think it's really important for us all to have good food resources in the area. So that's all we have. Vanessa, do you have anything?
That's all for me as well. I'm going to stop the recording right now.
Cool.
And